welcome to part 2 of this Watkins Electric Music 50 watt Dominator. So we're going to do a full restore on this in part 2, and we're going to have a good look through on the schematic. I'm going to start in this area, which is the power supply section of the amp, and we're going to replace most of the components in here. So the Bulgin plug is on order, and hopefully the one I've ordered will fit straight into that hole. We need to make some kind of panel just to go on there, just to block that hole off, because you can get your finger through it. And so if I can get my finger through it, it means a child can get theirs through it and reach in a lot further than I can. So we need to change that. We're going to change the capacitors. We're going to change both the switches, the fuse holder. We're going to take this board out. This board contains the diodes, the fuse holder. We're going to have a new fuse holder, new diodes. There's a resistor there we're going to change. So all that's being changed. Now if we look at the schematic, and I just need to turn these lights out to do that because it affects the camera. So if we look at the schematic, we could see some interesting things on here that aren't in this amp. So one of the things is this 125 microfarad capacitor, and then we've got a 50 microfarad there. So I'm going to put in 100 in there. This has got two 50s in, and that'd be fine actually, but I'm going to put 100. I'm going to try and keep this reasonably to spec as I can on the power supply. I've got 680 ohms there. If we're just getting close, you can just about see that. And we've only got 330 on here with that one. Sorry, it's a bit dark now, because if I put the lights on, this paper makes the camera flicker. So there's a couple of things that are different there, but other than that, and on this board here we've got, I ought to take this out really, it's easy to see, but on this board we've got the diode for the bias, and then we've got this resistor here in line. But on this schematic you can see coming off there, there's the bias resistor going up to the bias capacitors there, and we've got this asterisk and a resistor there, so I don't know what that's about, but that resistor is the other side of that diode, so we don't know what's going on there. We've got the two 16 microfarads, they're actually 15 in here, but that's near enough in it. We're not, so we're going to change those, and we are going to alter the values of those. We're going to up the value of those, and we're going to look at doing a bias preset on this amplifier. Now I may be able to do that from this resistor here. I've not looked at the circuit in detail yet. We've got a resistor here, so maybe able to put, and that'd be good, because if we could solder in on this PC board here, we could solder in a trim pot. That'll be very easy to adjust from there. So that's the first things we're going to do, is we're going to focus on this power supply section. So we're going to clean it all out. I've taken the back panel off. We'll put the lights back on now. At least put that one on. Put the lights back on. So I've taken off the back panel, which you can see there, and so we can clean that, and that's making the camera flicker. Aluminium does that, unfortunately. So we're going to clean that up as well. We've got that off there, and then when we finish this section, we're going to move on to this board. Now this if we lift this amp, we didn't actually look at this amp the other way around in part 1 with it faced upwards, but this amplifier's got a panel underneath which you can remove, and you can get to most of the components, but you can't get right into the edges. So we're still going to have to take this board out, I'm afraid, but that's okay, because while we've got it out we can clean it. And I also want to change these two valve C sockets here, so it'll be a bit easy to change those when the board's out. And then the rest of the amp is just tidying up the faceplate. We've got a new pilot light. Well, I've got a second-hand pilot light actually, because I thought I'd try and use a pilot light that's, although I've got to test it to make sure it works, but we've got this pilot light here which we're thinking of putting in. It'd be okay with a new one in, but I think I'm going to go with that as long as it tests okay. I'm just going to run it up, test it, on the variac, make sure it runs. And basically when we've done all that, it should all be clean and it should all have new components in there. So we'll get on, start the work on here, and then we shall return. Right, we've restored this panel, this little board that had the diodes on, and you can see there I've replaced every component in there. I've lifted the diodes off the board and put the fuse holder on, and I've also put that little bolt through the fuse holder as well, just to make it more secure. Change that 82k resistor because that was out of tolerance. Right, I've got this board out, and I've been obviously gradually restoring it, going through. So we've changed these capacitors. These two are in the tone stack there. We've got that 10 nanofarad there, coupling cap. Changing the plate resistors as we go. So these are metal film there and there. So those, change the capacitors in the bias. They are 47 microfarad now. They were 15 before. They're 47 at 100 volts. So they're way plenty big enough for the job. Another capacitor change there, one there. Now I've noticed these channels are slightly different. I'll just grab the schematic. Just turn that off, because these lights, for some reason, this just makes this camera flicker. So let's just go in a bit closer. So if we look, this is one of the channels, and if we look, we can see that this EQ, this tone stack, is slightly different to the other one. This one we have got 0.1 and 0.33 there. But if we look on this one, we've got 0.1 and 0.022, so 22 nanofarad. So that's different. And this is actually same as something that someone pointed out in one of the comments on those Wem Dominators. This is the same diagram, the same preamp stage as a normal Wem Dominator, except obviously this runs on EL34s and it's fixed bias as opposed to EL84s and cathode bias. But apart from that, the preamp sections are the same. But there is some slight differences. These are what the subscriber pointed out. These capacitors over the plate resistors, these 200 picofarad caps, and they are on the channel with the bright switch, and I'm wondering that they've put those on to just get rid of a bit of interference or whatever. When this bright switch is on, maybe it creates some oscillation without those. So there's a slight difference there. If we also, if we look, and I hadn't noticed this before, I hadn't realized, so we've got a 1.5k here, and we've got a 0.1 bypass in that. But if we look on here, we haven't got that. That's not on this one. So subtle differences on these amps. On the Dominator 15, the EQs are the same, but on here they're actually different. So there is a few slight differences. If we go on to the second stage, they're identical, which is there and there. They've both got 1.5k cathode resistors and 0.1s for the cathode bypass caps. But I think I'm going to mod this amp. I'm going to do, let's drop this out. So I'm going to do a few mods on this amp, not massive mods. So this channel here that has the 0.22 on the EQ, I'm going to mod this. I'm going to put something like a 1 or 2 microfarad capacitor, coupling capacitor, over that first stage, because it doesn't actually have one. So that's one mod that I'm going to do there. That's only a slight mod. But what I'm also going to do with this, and my Dominators that I actually use for gigging, well I only use one now, I've actually got this mod. So I'm actually going to run both channels into one side of the phase inverter, and there's a reason for that. I'm going to have a look. So this here is the phase inverter, and what they've done, they've run one channel into each side. If you try and plug these, if you use a Y lead and plug both these channels in together, they won't work because they'll be out of phase. And this mod was done by a tech that's sadly no longer with us now, a guy called Nick Evans. Really must watch his channel. He's a really clever guy. And what he did, disconnected this grid here at this point, and then take this part here and bring it back up and pair it on the other side of the phase inverter, which works quite well. Even with this, we've got 270k resistors here and here. They're 470 on the Dominator, so they're like mixer resistors. So if you bring that across here, you can run both channels into one side. That way then you can use both channels together. And then we just have to disable this grid to ground with a capacitor to stop it, so there's no noise. But also what it did was join the inputs inside. So if you plug into one channel, it's just a normal channel. But if you plug into the other socket, because there's obviously two sockets on the front, one for each channel, plug into the other socket, then you get both channels together and you can mix them as you wish. So if you just want to use that channel on its own, you can turn the volume down on the other one. Or if you want to use the channels together, then you can mix them. And that's why I'm going to do a bit of modding just to make these channels slightly different, so there's obviously more to mix. On my amps, the channels are virtually identical, and I just do it to get more gain out of them and more output, and it works really well, fattens up the tone. So we're going to look at that as well in a bit more detail, but I'll post a link in the description of this video so you can go and have a look at that video that Nick Evans did. So if you've got Dominators, it might be an idea to do that for yourself. So, but we're going to go through it on this anyway. Right, so we've got this board completed, and we've done a few mods on this board. So let's just have a look at what we've done. So we've got all the capacitors in there. We've managed to clean this board best we can. There is obviously it's very old, and there's flux burnt into it and all sorts, but it looks okay. It's okay. It is what it is. It's 50 years old, but it works fine. So we've changed, obviously we've changed the capacitors here. Let's get a pointer. Change the capacitors here and here. They're smoothing on the preamp stages. Well, that one's for for the preamp stage. We've changed the bias capacitors. I think we looked at those previously, and we've done these mods on the tone stacks. So I've modded this channel 2 more, and I've just put the 0.1 on the 100 nanofarad. But I've actually changed that 1.5 to an 820 there, so we've just made that channel just a little bit hotter on that biasing on that preamp tube on that first stage. We've got 10 nanofarad coupling cap, and we've got 100 nanofarad and 22 nanofarad now in here. I think that's what we had before without looking at the schematic. Now this side, this tone stack here, we have got 47 nanofarad and 22 there now. So we've changed that one considerably. This channel we're going to try and also make hotter. So we've still got the 1.5k, but we've got 680 nanofarad coupling cap there. So we've boosted this one up a little bit more. And the rest of the coupling caps we've changed every capacitor in this amp, except for these small, I don't know, trying to point one out. Where are they? Like a schoolmaster tapping that on there, aren't I? These on the plate resistors, this little, and there's another one there you can see on the plate resistor there. Also, I've changed all the plate resistors in this amp. It's something I tend to do in older amplifiers. A bit more light actually. Let's bang that on. Yeah, so I've changed all the plate resistors in there. all these capacitors, all these rest of the resistors test really well. So after dropping resistors has been changed there. Look, metal oxides on there, 4.7k they are. So now we've also modded these channels, because we'd looked on the schematic, if you remember, and they'd put one channel in each side of the phase inverter, which leaves these channels out of phase, which means you can't use them together. And because I've obviously modded these channels now, they're different, and so to mix them is a real advantage. So all that we've had to do is this 270k here now, which is channel 2, has been connected up to the grid on channel 1 that's going into this side of the phase inverter. So both channels now going into one side of the phase inverter, and this been done underneath, so you see the wires underneath, and the grid that was left floating on this side has been put to ground with a 0.1 capacitor, 100 nanofarad, and you can see those mods that I've done there. So yep, and that's easy as that, and that's made this amp just 10 times more versatile than it was before. So if you'd have got a Y lead to use both of these channels and switch them both on, you wouldn't get anything out of it. It'd be out of phase, so it'll be terrible. So that's now made this amp really usable. So we've got that sorted out. And what else? So I've put the new valve sockets in, the output tube sockets, which are there, you can see, because they were grubby. Let's have a look at the old ones, and you can see there, we just put one in front of the camera there. You can see they're in a terrible state. And I've also increased that 470 up to 1k, because it's not, 470 is just not enough. And you can see, and if we look at these, you probably can't see in this light, but the maybe on this one more, you can see the shades of carbon also appearing there, and that one's just, well, words can't describe the state they're in. So they had to come out, so they're done, they're going in the bin. Just got rid of those. So this amp now is really taking shape. Now, that one thing I am missing off this amplifier, if we go across here and just go down a bit, is I haven't got this, the switches aren't in yet. And the reason for that is the switches would go in, but they were just, the nuts are just right on the edge of the diameter of the hole. So I ordered some washers, just some wider washers to go over there. And I ordered M12s, and when they came through, there was about M24, M25, huge things. So obviously that's been a bit of, that's gone pear-shaped, but we can get those in. It just doesn't look very good. Right, quite a lot of work on this amp, and we've had quite a few problems. So we had a bit of a problem with the bias, and it turned out to be a carbon comp resistor that was in the bias that I really should have changed. It tested okay, but once it got under load, it was causing problems. So you can see we've got the tube sockets in, we've got the board in now, and the valves. I've run this up and it runs okay. But what we've also done with this is I've put a set of 6L6s in it and biased it for those, as opposed to EL34s. And the reason for that is because I'd got a set of 6L6s, I didn't have any EL34s. So I got a pair of those, and I thought I'm putting them in, and I've made it work, biased them up. It has affected the effective load resistance slightly, but it's not major. The 8 ohms is 5.5 ohms, so if you put an 8 ohm speaker on that, that's fine. It's if you're going the other way, as long as the speaker's higher than the effective load resistance on the transformer. So that's fine. And I think the 16 ohm works out to about 11, so with the 16 ohm speaker on. But what I'm going to do now, before I put this amp back in the case, I've ordered some new knobs for it, by the way, because the old ones are a bit tatty. So there's two things I'm going to do with this amp now. One is I'm now going to take it and run it up on the 4x12 and see what we've got with these mods and what it's like. And then when I've done that, I'm going to fit a master volume in this amp, and I've removed the bright switch, and it'll just fit in there. It's not ideal being close to the main switch, but hopefully it'll be all right with some screened cable. So I'm going to do that. And here I found this pot, 250k double gain. One side of that's never been used, the other ones, I don't know what that came out of, I really can't remember, but I'm going to use that. I've also got some wires to tidy up as well, which you can see here, and the reason for that is I've been in and out with this board, so I left a bit of length on those, but I'm going to trim those up, make those right. Right, we've got this beast up and running, and this is the channel with the 680 nanofarad cap. With this, and I think this EQ I didn't modify, it's the other one. So mid control works really well. Plenty of top on it. This is loud. Try the other channel. Much more bass here, that channel. Right, we've got it in its case, and you can see the case has been cleaned up. So my neighbour Carl has repaired the end there where it was broken, and this was made of plywood, so it's made of plywood, so it was quite easy to fix. We've got some screws in the side just to strengthen it up. These are just some black slots in there, slot screws, and we gave it a once over with the boot polish and shined it up, and it's come up really good. Got all the paint off that was on the front, if you remember. So this is all finished except for the master volume. So I ordered some dual gang pots, and they were delivered today. Unfortunately they were single gang and not dual, because you know I like these master volumes with a dual gang pot, which I put between the phase inverter and the grid stoppers on the output tubes. So I've got this back together, so I thought I'd just, when I get the master volume in, we'll do a separate video on this, and we can crank these channels and keep the volume down. We're going to have a bit of a listen. I've put the old knobs on because I've got some new ones on order. These look a bit tatty, and I had to cut through one of them to get it off because the screw had rusted away and I just couldn't get it off. So we've got one of the wing type Dominator pots on for the time being, off one of the 15-watt Dominators. Now I've also changed one of the bypass capacitors on this channel 1, because we'd got 100 nanofarad on the first stage and 100 on the second stage, and there wasn't, with exception of the middle, there weren't a massive difference between them. So I've removed the 100 nanofarad on the second stage and I've put on a 25 microfarad, and that's made this channel a little bit more bassier, and it's just got a bit more, fattened it up a little bit. See there, if we're just going to the other channel on full bass, you can see we've just got that bit more bass there, a bit more guts. So on channel 2, on the first stage, we've got a 680 nanofarad capacitor, and then we've got the 100 nanofarad on the second stage on there. So let's just take some bass off there now, and some Of course, channel 2 we've got this mid control. Which I tend to find you need quite a bit of that in there. It'd be nice to have if that mid control worked on both channels. Find a pick. We'll use a pick this time. Into humbucker mode. I got that on single coil, now it's on humbucker. With all the mid in there. we go. That's a fair demo of that. So that's been a really brilliant project. I think this amp was in a real bad state when I bought it. It's had so much work done to it, but it's been a worthwhile project. It's still not 100% mint by any means. It's a player grade amp, and we've still got the master volume to add on yet, hence that hole there where that's going to be. That's where the bright switch was, which we removed. So this amp's had a full restore. We've changed probably 60-70% of the components on the board. Obviously a full recap, new switches, fuse holders. It said it's now running on 6L6s instead of EL34s. It's had a new back made for it on it as well. Let me just spin you that round so you can have a look. So you can now see the back that Carl made. Again, it's ply. Obviously we had no covering, so we've actually just, it's been painted, but it's made a smart job. It does look quite a nice amplifier. So we've got the IEC there. We had a Bulgin before, if you remember, and it was all smashed. And these type just about fit in the hole. You just had to widen the hole out a millimetre or so, and they'll go straight in. So that looks really neat. Where you see a lot of them, they've been put in, and you can still see the hole either side of the IEC. So that's worked well. Cleaned all this back, and yeah, it's looking most splendiferous. So screws aren't fully in yet because I've got to take this back off again when I put the master volume in. So yeah, it's if you remember the state that it was in when it came, and if you look at it now, it's much better. So that'll do it for this video. I'm going to do another video. We're going to come back to it again with the master volume in. I may just do some slight tweaks. I'm going to take this amp out on a gig tomorrow, and I'm going to run it up and just see how it sounds. Sounds great in here. We'll see how it performs live. So that's it. So thanks for watching, and you all take good care of yourselves, and I'll see you all in another video. Bye bye for now.